Good morning. Thank you so much for being here. I'm Christie Flora, a time, energy, attention trainer, and I help leaders and teams get organized with their time, energy, and attention so they can step out of constant urgency and create more space to lead effectively. Most of the people I work with are capable and committed, but feeling stretched. So, together, we build practical ways of working that are calmer, clearer, and more sustainable so they can perform at a high level without burning out. And with me here is Justine Marie Cox.
Hi, everybody. How you going? I am Justine as Christie, and it's nice to be here. I am a leadership expert. I create connected leaders who can 10x performance in 12 months. I have over 25 years experience across both the not-for-profit and the commercial sectors. And I bring my unique blend of human resources, operations, and governance or board level perspective. And I help to simplify what could be complex leadership challenges. I have partnered with hundreds of leaders and managers and executive teams to really strengthen leadership capability, improve accountability, and create connected cultures, and help people to really lean into our unique ability to really maximize the human potential. It's great to be here, Christie.
Oh, fantastic. As mentioned, I spend a lot of time with leaders who are capable, thoughtful, and deeply committed to their mission and their people, but almost all of them say some version of the same thing, which is, I don't have time to think. I'm constantly in reaction mode. By the end of the week, I've been busy, but I'm not sure how my team is going, not sure what's happening around me on the ground. And what I've noticed is this: most leaders don't have a time problem, they have an urgency addiction. So when everything feels urgent, leadership shrinks. We move fast, but on things that don't really matter. And we respond, but we don't always choose what to focus on. So it's about reframing this urgency. So as urgency has become the default setting in many organizations, it's not because everything truly matters right now, but because we haven't slowed down enough to decide what actually does. So what I've seen is that urgency is often inherited. It's from calendars, it's from inboxes, it's from the culture, and unspoken expectations. And what this results in is that the cost isn't just stress, but the cost is that leaders stop creating space for the work only they can do. And when I look at where leadership time actually goes, a few patterns show up again and again. So constant context switching, meetings that exist because they just always have, decisions being delayed, then escalated, and people issues being parked because there's no time to deal with that now, but they take up a lot of time later on when they do become escalated. So,
I know, Christie, I
oh
see
yeah.
that a lot in the work that I do, is that escalation. And so the issues are being escalated up to senior leaders and putting lots of pressure on them where they really should be resolved closer to the work and the people.
That's right. Yeah. And so taking those moments before it explodes is what helps that delay, getting it up to the people who don't need to really be bothered by it. So
That's,
true.
yeah.
So true. So this is where I often bring in what I call the T lens, so the time, energy, and attention lens. So as we all know, there's 168 hours per week, and the maths has to add up. So I see people with a to-do list that's miles long, but there's no way to do that all in a week. So more is not better if the stuff doesn't matter. So we need to be looking at our capacity. And energy is the fuel that we burn to be productive. So what we do with our time varies enormously from day to day due to our energy levels. And then attention is that final piece in the puzzle, which is attention management, the process of intentionally focusing on the most critical tasks at hand without succumbing to distractions. So those three work together helping people make a different set of decisions about what fills their 168 hours a week and how your week takes shape. So once you start looking at it through that lens, it changes how your work unfolds, your work and your week. Mm. So the leaders that I work with aren't looking to work like machines. They're looking to work with their humanity, and that's what that T lens really brings into play. So creating time doesn't mean squeezing more into the week. It means removing the false urgency that's been quietly eating it. So often that looks like fewer meetings, but better ones. It's protecting thinking time instead of apologizing for it. And it's being conscious in how we work. So we work well and smoothly the first time round. And just as Justine was saying before, that things don't get out of hand because we're able to be in the moment and deal with them front up. So there are very practical ways to create this kind of space without dropping the ball. And what I've seen is that most leaders just haven't been shown how to do it in a way that actually holds for them. Um, so having a look at the culture of meetings, for example, research shows that after only a few seconds of focusing on a task, our minds start to wander. So not only do we need attention in meetings for those meetings that do matter and need to be held, but this also links back to having time protected in our calendars to focus on what we are working on, free from interruptions and distractions. And some interesting recent data about meetings is that the average executive spends approximately 23 hours weekly in meetings. It's a lot of time.
That is a lot of time.
It
Actually,
is.
that figure surprises me, Christie. I didn't think it would be that much, but
I
that's
know.
more than half your week.
It is, right? That's why it's so important to review why are we going to these meetings and what is their purpose? And and I actually teach my clients a 25-minute meeting framework. So how can we take back this assumption that meetings should be an hour long, and how can we get that down to a 25-minute meeting? But then I know some like ministers and things like that, they hold 5-minute meetings. So it is possible to have shorter meetings. And luckily, Microsoft has seen that they've added to this impression that meetings should be an hour long. And they have this tool now that's built in to help normalize this shorter meetings. So if you're on Outlook, this is how you would find that tool that I help my clients use in conjunction with that framework. And if you're on Google, they also have a similar feature. So using tech wisely like this, it ensures that time foundations are in place, and it's how leaders gain back time in their week, literally in the calendar, but also in felt space, headspace, leadership presence, all of the spaces. And this is usually where leaders realize, well, this is something we can actually redesign. We can kind of push back on the culture that and the assumptions and the expectations, and it's not something we just have to cope with and deal with. But Justine and I have noticed that something interesting happens when that space appears. So leaders feel the urge to fill it. Which
Yes.
brings us to the most important question and how Justine and my work overlaps. What do you do with the time once you've created it, found it? What do you do with it?
Yeah.
So, yeah, go ahead.
Absolutely, Christy. I mean, one of the things that I do with my clients is work out what is their high value work compared to their low value work. And the other thing that I talk about is better conversations. But I'm curious if we ran the numbers and we could adopt your 25-minute protocol. So you're more than halving that 23 hours. Just imagine what you can do with an extra 10, 12 hours a week if you're an
Exactly.
executive. I mean, that you can create a lot of value in that time.
Exactly. Yes. Yes. It's just so much more space to work on the things that matter and to move things forward. Yeah. And then it's because, well, real leadership, real leverage of leadership isn't more tasks, but it's those better conversations and it's connected leadership, which Justine will go into around conversations. But that's where connected leadership really lives, is in conversations that build trust instead of tension, and conversations that surface what's really going on and what is the next step, rather than it escalating so much that then we're dealing with the fallout, you know. So yeah, I help leaders create the space, and Justine helps leaders use that space well, and that's where leadership starts to feel really different.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. And so what I notice is that leadership effort is being absorbed and not leveraged. And a lot of people are spending a lot of time on what I would call low value leadership work. And that means as an organization, you're investing enormous leadership energy without actually seeing a sustainable, consistent performance return. I was actually with a group of leaders in Sydney yesterday, and I was working with them on my connected conversations model. And I had a fairly new leader who is managing a Sydney office, and it's a successful office, but she was really starting to feel burnout. And when we talked about that in the lunch break, what we realized is she was spending a whole lot of time doing things that she ideally should be delegating, but actually is holding on to. And I found this, McKinsey did a report, and they found that leaders spend up to 60% of their time on work that could be delegated. 60%.
Mm.
Now, if you take that, plus take the time that you could save if you work with Christie around your getting your meetings a bit shorter, imagine the impact you can have. Imagine the thinking time that you can create, the ability to connect with your people, and really amplify your leadership impact.
Mm.
That's why this work is so important.
Mm. Mm-hmm.
So this is not a time management problem. Yeah, and I actually don't believe in time management because, as Christy said, we all have the same amount of time. Managing it's not going to get you more of it. But it is a leadership leverage problem. And I find that a lot of the issue starts quite early in somebody's career. What we do is we take these technical experts, and then we say to them, you're so good at doing that thing. You're good at the accounting. We'll give you a whole team of accountants to look after. Now, the
Mm.
work that you did to be a great accountant and the skills and the way you spent your time, your energy, and your effort will be very different to the way you need to spend it as a leader.
Mm.
We don't help leaders make that transition. And so they carry these habits that worked in one job but aren't applicable for another job. And that's why I love Christie's T formula, right? Because your time, energy, and attention is how you leverage and create impact. And so we want to make sure that you're putting it in the right direction.
Mm. Mm.
Okay, so what I'm finding is this performance conversation journey. So one of the things that you need to create time for is more conversations and better quality conversations. As I said, I was in a workshop yesterday working with somebody on that, and it's really interesting. We don't have, a lot of organizations don't teach people how to have good conversation and give them good framework so a conversation will run effectively. So what
Mm.
I find is that people firstly are unaware of what they actually should be focusing their energy of and the conversations that they're having. So I need to help you work on recognizing what are the conversations that should be had. Then I find that people will tend to avoid them, particularly because they're feeling not confident or uncomfortable. And so we help people have safety and feel safe to have the right conversations. Once people stop avoiding, we then start getting people to practice. And what I find is that they're applying it, but it's inconsistent. And so having a really strong structure and a rhythm around that helps. And then people start to be much more intentional and start to own the rhythm of having great conversations and focusing on high value work. And then finally, we get that connected conversation, that connected culture, and things are on a rhythm, they become habit, and that's when it becomes sustainable, and you can really 10x your performance through that. But as Christie said before, urgency has become the default operating rhythm. And urgency concentrates leadership effort in a small number of people and tends to make us become really reactive. So the part of our brain, that prefrontal cortex at the front, that tends to kind of shut down a little bit, and we start to use older parts of the brain to sort of go on habits. And they tend to be old habits used in past situations that aren't always the right habit for now. And so what I do is I get people to start focusing on what is the high value work. And so I have this simple model that talks about how leadership effort translates into organizational value. I find a lot of people sit down in the firefighter. They're reactive and overloaded. The leader is absorbing problems. The teams depend on the leader's individual effort. They're not having great conversations. And the value from an organizational perspective is capped at one person's capacity who is under pressure. Now, sometimes I'll find people that have realized that it's the collective effectiveness that they really need to harness as the leader, so the whole team, but they still hold the power with them, right? And so they become a bit of a taskmaster. So they do direct work, but they don't enable ownership. And again, their conversations are more around, here's do this, do that, do this. They're not connecting things to purpose. They're not helping people understand how their work creates impact, and they're not helping people see the bigger picture. Or I do find sometimes if we're still focused in effort, they end up at gatekeeper. And those leaders are very well intentioned, but they tend to be over controlling because they're still holding on to everything themselves. And so again, they hold information, and the conversations that they're having will be stilted and feel they will control them. They won't be open. They won't allow for open dialogue or for collaboration. Real sweet spot of where you want to be sitting is in that conductor. So think about an orchestra and think about, what does a conductor do? And I tell you, the thing that they don't do is they don't play the instruments. Leaders, the real benefit of being in leadership and the opportunity is in the ability to amplify and multiply your impact through your team. You're no longer an individual contributor. You are the leader of people. You're getting work done through other people. And so the conductor creates clarity, rhythm, and trust. Ownership sits with the team, impact and scale, and your value is consistently multiplied. When you're a conductor, you have a really strong performance conversation system. And that's one of the things that I teach people is, what is that performance conversation system? But you've got to create the time and space and energy using Christie's work to be able to sit in that conductor phase. And one of the reasons I wanted to partner up with Christie on this is because what I see all the time and what people tell me is, I can't get out of firefighter mode, Justine, because I don't have time. Christie can help you reclaim the time, the energy, and the attention so you can sit in conductor mode and actually create huge impact. And if you're a leader of other leaders, then using these models to open up that space, time, and energy to get your leaders focused on high value work is one of the best things you can do for your organization. So what is the hidden cost of effort-based leadership? Well, you have a real dependency risk. And you'll probably notice that in your organization, you'll have leaders where there's a lot of pressure on them because they become really dependent on them. And that's a risk to the organization, because if that leader falls over or that leader leaves, then you're going to have a big hole. You slow down execution. So things take too long. You get fatigue in your business. Your capability doesn't scale. Your leadership pipeline will become very stagnant. You get burnout and turnover risk, and your strategy drifts because you aren't able to execute and get that work done through the greatest asset you've got, and that is your people. So leadership leverage comes from designing your performance conversations, and I call it the performance conversation system. I just wanted to give you a quick highlight of what it includes. If you want more information, reach out. I use 4 simple conversations: context, check-in, coaching, and what I call my core conversations. I've actually just come off the back of a group coaching call. I ran my Connected Conversations workshop for a group of actually a whole team, so it was leaders and their teams included. And then off all of my workshops, what I do is we have follow-up coaching, because I don't want you to come into a room once, listen to my message and say that was very lovely and go back to work and nothing changes. I want a real return on investment. And so the follow-up coaching conversations, we've just had 3. And so I taught them the core model. They then were tasked to go and have at least one conversation using the model after every group coaching call. And then we come back in and we talk about it. And it's really fantastic. One of the things that they just reported to me was that they are now connecting more, which has improved the quality of relationships and trust in the business. And they are slowing down and getting better results from their conversations. So for me, that was music to my ears, Christie.
That's an amazing outcome. Yeah.
And so the model that I taught them was my core model, which is here for you on the screen. I won't go into it, but it's really an important model. We use it for both tough conversations and for conversations where we are providing constructive, positive feedback. And so it is about connecting, opening up the conversation, reflecting and empowering. Connection is about creating a foundation of trust and safety. Opening up is inviting somebody into the conversation. One of the things that I talk about with them is that as the leader, you don't need to own the problem. Your role is to support someone else to solve their challenges. So opening up invites them in. Reflection is checking, are we on the same page? Empowering is, where are we going next and who's doing what by when?
I can see how trying that at least 3 times to then really embed it and get that practice so it becomes like almost memory would be so valuable. And then to have that feedback about what went well, what didn't on conversation 1, how to improve that conversation 2, and then again on 3. Very, very valuable.
Yeah, and reflection is how we actually learn. So reflection is not just about thinking what happened. Reflection is thinking about what happened and then creating new insight because of it. And that's what really helps things stick in our brain, is that reflection. And so the coaching conversations are to help them reflect. It's to give them a framework to think that through. But it's really powerful.
Amazing.
So when leaders invest their reclaimed time, which Christie helps you do, into core conversations and that performance conversation system, that is when you will see your performance really scale. You are in need of creating space. Christie and I both do one-to-one coaching. We also run team workshops and masterclasses to reduce urgency, create more effective ways of working. We'd love to have a conversation with you. But it's been great to be here with you, Christie. One of the key takeaways that I took from your part of the discussion was that new meeting, being able to make them shorter, because I can be guilty of just put a meeting in, and often I don't even say how long the meeting needs to be. We just assume it's going to be an hour because that's what we all do. I've recently been challenging myself to make my meetings just 45 minutes, because if I do that for 4 meetings, I've just reclaimed 1 hour.
That's right. A lot of people do that, and the term is we've been Microsofted, because a lot of our tools implement reflect how we do things. So yeah, I'm glad that's a takeaway, and good job cutting back to 45 minutes.
And it becomes habit, right? You haven't even thought about it, you put it on autopilot.
Yeah. I particularly love your analogy of the conductor, because that is so true. Because once people get promoted, they still holding on to the things that they're used to, comfortable doing, and there isn't that training in between about how to let go of that and how to effectively delegate, how to have those conversations. You're just like, oh, you're really good at this. Now we're putting you up, but with no support. So your work is incredibly valuable to encourage that conductor likeness.
Excellent. Thank you. Yeah, I mean, you and I can talk about leadership all day long because we both love it. But it's been a great conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much.